Please take your seats. We're going to start the meeting. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Cindy Jerome, and it's my privilege to serve as your town and school district moderator. Because both the town meeting and school district meeting are warned for 10 a.m., I will call both meetings to order. This year, the school district meeting will occur first, and so I will recess the town portion until the conclusion of the school district meeting. Thanks. Yeah. The Dummerston Town Meeting and Town School District meeting are hereby called to order. The town meeting is recessed until the conclusion of the school district meeting. Please rise for the salute to the flag if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to begin again this year with an invocation that originated in Danville, Vermont. We are gathered together in civil assembly. We gather as a community in the oldest sense of the word. We gather to come together and try to make decisions about what is right, about what is wrong. Let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there is an immense gap between saying, I am right, and I believe I am right. And that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people with hopes and dreams as true and as high as ours. And let us always remember that in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any other difference we may have. We've lost some members of our community in the last year and in the last few days. I will read their names and then we'll have a brief moment of silence. Esther Falk, Ray Bissett, Art Benedict, Rosalia Bandish, Pauline Smith, Anna Bond, Larry Lynch Sr., Leonard Wright, Tom Lowell, Victor Burdo, Arlene Busby, and Janet Avery. Thank you. Let's acknowledge and thank the scores of people who work to make our town as special as it is. On pages 2 and 3 of your town report, all our elected and appointed officials are listed. If your name appears there, or if you serve on our road crew, volunteer fire department, or rescue squad, please stand. Come on, guys. Thank you. I'll remind you of the Adopt a Book program in the school library. This meeting is being audio taped by the town clerk and recorded by Brattleboro Community Television for broadcast on Comcast and Southern Vermont Cable. You can watch the meeting on channel 10, 8 or 10, on channel 10, Frederick says, or online at brattleboro.tv.org. Please put your cell phones on vibrate. Avoid being really embarrassed. In order to speak, you must be a registered Dummerston voter. It is our tradition, however, to make an exception for certain individuals. If there's no objection, I will allow our school principal, Joe Carroll Ratty, our school district superintendent, Ron Staley, and our school district business administrator, Frank Rucker, to speak. I will give the same privilege to our legislators and our governor if he should arrive, and will interrupt our proceedings when they arrive so that they may present their reports and answer your questions. You also must be a registered Dummerston voter to vote on any issue today. If there's a division of the House where you stand to indicate your aye or nay, please make sure you're not being counted if you're not a registered voter. We'll break for lunch around noon. It's provided by the good folks at the Grange, headed by Larry Lynch, Jr. The cost is still $7 for adults and $4 for children. If you have difficulty standing, you have the option of holding up a card when a division of the House is called. Please raise your hand now if you'd like a card and don't have one yet. Ready? Okay. Pam McFadden, our town clerk, has prepared a very nice summary of the rules of town meeting. Copies are on the chairs, and I encourage you to familiarize yourself with it. There are more in the back, I think. They're the blue page. A few highlights. Robert's Rules of Order govern town meeting. All motions and remarks and questions should be directed to the moderator. To speak, raise your hand, and when recognized, wait for the microphone. We have several able assistants today running the microphones to speakers. Bram Tabachnik, Jesse Jerome Wren, Amelia Glickman, and Sylvie Normando are helping us out today. Thank you. Do wait for the microphone so we can all hear you. And when you start your remarks or your question, please state your name first so we know who you are. I ask the members of the Board of Civil Authority to be ready to count if a division of the House is requested. My job is to help you, the voters, accomplish your will. If you're not sure how to do something, ask me and I'll look it up. There are very few errors in the town report this year. Geraldine Wilson is listed as having a select board term that expires in 2018 on page 2. That should read 2017. And then there are 2 column headings that are incorrect on page 13 at the bottom. The Highway Structures Fund proposed, the last column. Those years should be 16 and 17 rather than 15 and 16. And the same thing is the case at the top of page 13 under Statement of Revenue. Those years should be 16 and 17 under proposed. And now to the school district portion of the meeting. You'll find the warning on page 52 of your town report. May I ask for quiet in the back, please? Those of you voting, thank you. Article 1 is by Australian ballot. Article 2, to act on the auditor's report of the town school district. Is there a motion? Okay. That's you, isn't it? Yes.
Good morning. I move the auditor's report of the town school district accounts be accepted as printed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christian. It has been moved and seconded that the auditor's report of the town school district accounts be accepted as printed. Are there any questions, any debate? You are voting to approve the auditor's report of the town school district accounts, that it be accepted as printed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the article is passed. Article 3, to see if the town school district will authorize its school board to accept and expend categorical grants and aid received from the state of Vermont and the U.S. government.
I move that the town school district authorize its school board to accept and expend categorical grants and aid received from the state of Vermont and the United States government.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. It has been moved and seconded that the town school district authorize its school board to accept and expend categorical grants and aid received from the state of Vermont and the United States government. Any questions? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of authorizing the school board to accept and expend categorical grants and aid received from the state of Vermont and the United States government, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and Article 3 passes. Article 4, to see what salaries the town school district will vote to pay its officers and directors.
I move that the town school district vote to pay its officers and directors' salaries in the amount of $500 each for a total of $2,500.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Rick seconds. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the town school district vote to pay its officers and directors' salaries in the amount of $500 each for a total of $2,500. Any questions? You are voting to pay the school district officers and directors' salaries in the amount of $500 each for a total of $2,500. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and Article 4 passes. Article 5, shall the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $3,475,661, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,214 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 0.6% higher than spending for the current year.
I move that the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $3,475,661, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,214 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 0.6% higher than spending for the current year.
Is there a second? Dan seconds. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $3,475,661, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,214 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 0.6% higher than spending for the current year. Amy, do you want to come up here? Great.
Good morning. So, if you would turn to page 33, usually what I've done in past years is go through a run-through of the budget, the revenue side, and then the expense side. We're going to do the same thing this year. But you probably noticed in your town report that the structure of the reporting has changed slightly, and that's due to requirements for state and federal reporting. So let's start with page 33, looking at the revenue. So the first line item to note is tuition revenue. We expect fewer tuition students for the 2016-2017 school year. Rental fees is dropping slightly. We'd still expect $10,000 worth of income, and that's specifically related to having the K-5 or K-6 intensive services program here at the school. The Medicaid subgrant is funding for the school nurses' salary and benefits, and that's provided by the WSESU Elementary Intensive Program. Title 2A Subgrants are used for professional development. We use them to fund literacy and academic coaches. The special education block grant, the intensive services state aid, and the extraordinary state aid represent the three types of state aid that we are expecting in the coming school year. And then the surplus deficit figures that you see, FY15 shows a deficit due to unplanned expenses for a heating control system that total about $35,000. Some building contracted services related to that for 16, an unplanned 504 placement for a student with not the typical special education needs, but needs that qualified them for 504 assistance and support, and that totaled about $31,000. And then also unexpected at FY15, we decided to take a large class and divide it into two groups, and we opted not to hire a technology instruction person. So in essence, we ran over by $105,000 that particular year, and in this year's budget, you're going to see the final payment. We took out a 3-year note to pay that deficit down, and you will see in here the final payment. So does anybody have any questions about revenue? Okay, we'll go on to page 34. And this is where you'll start to see some differences in the format. What we're looking at is we're looking at the specific line items, and then they're being drilled down into what the specific line items fall under a group called function. So if you look under the first one, it says function, technology, education. That gives a subtotal for all the line items related to technology education. And we'll work our way through that. The next level up in terms of totals is the school heading, which we'll see on page 36, about a third of the way down. You'll see school district-wide. And then after that, we will see program, which is a subtotal of everything, including the functions, the school-related expenses, all totaled together into the program line. And then we end up with the grand total. So we're sort of doing an upside-down pyramid with all the details at the top and then drilling down to our final total, which is a little bit of reverse of what we've done other years. So starting on page 34 with the function technology education, not a whole lot of change there at all. The $11,000 you see on the last line item for technology equipment is our ongoing purchase of Chromebooks. We have sort of a rotating stock of them, and as some have problems or are no longer supported, we have new ones that keep coming into the system. The next function is counseling services. The increase there is primarily due to the qualifications of the school guidance counselor, and that's dictated to us by teacher's contract. In nursing function, the next one, nursing services, very little increases, mostly related to health insurance and workers' comp, and a little bit for supplies. Under program improvement, there are no changes there. Are you guys still with me? Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, and then down at the bottom of page 34, That last section, the function school library services, that's for everything to operate our school library. And again, nominal increases there, primarily in health insurance, workers' comp, and then some increased online fees. If you go to page 35 and look at the function for Board of Education Services, that's the money set aside for the school board to conduct its business. You'll see our $2,500 for our pay, for our salaries. Most notable thing is the $25,000 increase in the legal line fee. The function office of the superintendent services, this is our assessment for shared services. It includes support from central office, staff, curriculum and assessment, ESL, speech therapy, and also fiscal services, so we can pay our bills. It's also based on use, so we've had a slight increase in our use, so accordingly our assessment's going to go up. Also, the next function is Office of the Principal Services. This is what Joe Carroll needs to run the school from the front office. The most dramatic changes you'll see are in the secretary's salary, and that's due to qualifications. We hired a new secretary to replace Stella White, and the same thing can be said for the health insurance option. That's probably due to employee selection of various options and the 7.9% increase in health insurance rates. Everything else has stayed pretty much the same in that function. If you go under treasurer or fiscal services function, that's what the town offices use to support their work on our behalf, the school treasurer. There's no change there. Operations, the function operations and maintenance of plant. The primary decrease is due to a staffing change, and we have a lovely new custodian who was hunkered here behind me, so. It also, if you notice too, down on property and liability insurance, there's a $17,000 decrease. That actually reflects workers' compensation that was included in that line item being pulled out and spread to the more appropriate line items in the budget. So that's not a real decrease per se. You'd see that in other aspects of the budget. And then the electricity line item, there's a $2,500 expected reduction there from this current year, and that's anticipated because of our participation as one of the schools involved with the Vermont School Solar Net Metering opportunity. On page 36, under the function Student Transportation Services, the $2,600 increase there is a contractual increase. Student transportation co-curricular function, no change there. That is for field trips and for supporting the 8th grade class trip. And the next function is debt service. There you will see the $22,745. That is our final payment for the FY15 operating deficit. And so other than that being decreased slightly from the previous year, there's no change there. And then we get to the next, the school district-wide. subtotal of $1,019,718, which represents a 1.2% decrease from this current year. And this is for K-8 shared expenses throughout the school. So is everybody still with me? Okay. Yes. Oh. Oh.
No question?
No? Okay. So no question? Oh, okay. All right. So let's continue on. Regular program, direct instruction, pre-K. This is our expenses related to participation in the state ADM, preschool ADM program. What it allows, we contract with area preschools. The state, as a result, allows us to include them in our per pupil count, which helps boost our equalized pupil number, which helps us. In turn, we pass that money on to the preschools that we've contracted with for three specific purposes. One is staff development, professional development, program enhancement, and tuition reduction. So if you have any preschoolers that you know of that live in Dummerston that aren't aware of this, then they should talk with Jo Carroll, and she can, or any board member, and we can get them the information. But it is a very valuable program. The increase there, the $7,104 increase, is due to an increase in the number of students that will be participating. We anticipate, instead of the 6 to 10 that we've allocated for in previous years, we're going to have probably 12. And that's based on $3,092 per student, the cost of. The next function is regular programming, direct instruction, and this is for the elementary program. So this would be grades K to 5, or K to 6, sorry. It does look like there has been a dramatic increase when you look down at the subtotal, the $101,307. That's actually not the case. What has happened, particularly in the staffing line, for elementary teachers, we ended up shifting, doing some reconfiguring of the structure of the school staff, particularly with the middle school. And this $51,624 represents the shift of 2 teachers from the middle school program, specifically for science, to grades 5 and 6. And the same is true for the para salaries number. That seems to have gone up almost $19,000. This represents a shift of 1 special education para that's in-house from special education function to a regular instruction function. And let's see, I guess that's about it for that one. So if you were to match this out with other areas in the budget, it's going to come to a pretty near wash. If you look at the next function, improvement of instruction services, there's no change there. And then we get to the school level, which is a subtotal for the elementary school, plus all of the shared Dummerston school services, that are spread out all over the 9 grades. And we're getting to a number of $1,394,248. which represents a 7.8% increase from the current fiscal year. When you go on to the next section, which goes from page 36 to 37, it's the function regular programs, direct instruction for secondary, and this is our middle school program, grades 7 and 8. Again, you're going to see in the top line item there, the secondary teacher's salary. That's the reduction there is related to the shift of staff to the elementary part of the program. There's no change in the improvement of instruction for the secondary function. And then we get to the school. So it's going to cost $234,101 to run the middle school program, which represents a 12% reduction. And again, that's from shifting staff. The next level up is called regular programs. So this is going to be for pre-K to 8 programs, and it excludes special education. So the total there is $2.6 million, almost $2.7 million, and that's a 2.4% increase from the current fiscal year. Everybody good? Okay. I don't know if you guys have had your coffee yet, but or if I'm just boring you. So the next function is student transportation. This is for winter activities. There's no change there. We continue to support that within the $5,000 a year. The next subsection or function is for co-curricular activities, and this is related to athletics at the school, which generally involve 5th through 8th graders. Coaching fees, official fees, supplies, that type of thing. And again, there's no increase there per se. So the total expense to run that portion of the school's programming is a little over $21,000, as you can see from the program after school and co-curricular line there, which represents a 0.1% increase from the current year. Now we're going to get into the special education portion of our budget. In the next function, you'll see special education, direct instruction. These are expenses that are specifically Dummerston related. They are for paraeducators that are designated as special education paraeducators here in the building. If you recall, all special educator certified staff or teachers were required to transition that function up to the supervisory union budget. In the special education para salary, you see a $37,000, almost $38,000 decrease, and that's for 2 positions. One is the one that shifted to regular education that I mentioned previously, and then the second one is shifting up to the supervisory union budget as part of the new the expansion of what is called the STEP program. The STEP program that is being implemented is going to take, it's existed at Academy and I believe Green Street or Oak Grove schools for several years now, and it's meant to deal with children who do not have typical disabilities as defined by special education. These children have behavioral and emotional issues that impact their ability to function in the classroom. And as our population continues to change, we're seeing more and more of them. And this STEP program and its expansion represents a collective effort by the supervisory union to address those needs so that we do not have to incur even more expenses by shipping or sending them out of district. So for these special education direct instruction, these are all related to our in-house expenses, and all the decreases are related to the removal of those 2 paraprofessionals from our budget, or the one paraprofessional from our budget, and then 1 to the regular education function. If you go down to the next function, which is special ed direct instruction, this is our supervisory union assessment for shared special education services. And it does include this STEP program that I just described. The STEP program, what's going to happen is that paraprofessionals will be selected from various schools in our supervisory union, and they will be trained as behavior intervention technicians. They'll be supervised by the supervisory union's behavior interventionist, and they, in our schools, will offer support to teaching staff and students who have been identified with emotional and behavioral challenges. So, and the increase there is due, so a portion of that increase, the $214,000 increase, is related to the STEP program. Another portion of it is related to out-of-district placements. We have 5 students who we don't have in-house programs for, either here in Dummerston or within our supervisory union, so we've found appropriate placements for them outside of our union. The next function is special ed direct instruction, and this is for the EEE program. EEE services are for Dummerston children ages 3 to 5 years old in area preschools and for the state licensed preschool classroom for both typically developing and special needs children. And this is based on the number of students actually enrolled. And there's a $14,000 increase there, and that is based on the number of children that will be participating. If you go to the next function for food service operations, we continue to subsidize our food service program. It's been going a lot better, but it does need that additional boost from our budget to offset any potential revenue losses. And that gets us down to the big picture. The total expenditures for FY17 are $3,475,661. I don't know if people want to ask questions.
Okay. Jody?
Hi, Jody Normando, and I just have a couple of questions. Actually, 3 of them, and maybe you explained it, Amy, and I missed. There's a lot of abbreviations in here, and what does STEP stand for, and what does STEM stand for?
STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay.
And STEP is, I think Lyle can answer it.
Supportive teams for educational progress.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Lyle. The other question that I have is that I think one school, at least in the district, is doing a farm-to-table lunch program. Have we considered doing something like that?
Not at the board level. We've relied on our supplier of food, our contracted services, to do that. And cafe services, that was one of their selling points, that they did have more farm-to-school programming in their lunches. So.
Down front.
My name is Opeyemi, and I just had a question. Under your Board of Education Services, you have that legal fees, and I'm new to town, so I didn't know why it went from $1,000 to $25,000 with that big jump.
Well, okay.
I'm happy to answer that question. And bear with me, it may take a few minutes because it's... Stop. I'll stand back. I think you can hear me in the back. We went into the budget year with some moderate headwind, you might say, between Act 46, which is had some constraints imposed upon us from how much we could increase our budget, and we also had a fairly substantial increase in special education costs. That's on the negative, the things we were confronted with from a challenging standpoint. On the opportunity side of things, we had two things that worked out in our favor. This year, we were required to, or we were allowed to keep, required and allowed to keep the pre-K student count and add that into our student count. It was the first year that we were able to do this. It was a statute that required that we educate these children. And so that actually increased our equalized pupil count, which it's always good when your student count goes up. That helps your bottom line. The second thing, there was the student count, and then there was the, oh right, the CLA, the fund number that we get late in the budget process. Unfortunately, our property values are decreasing in our town, and not unlike most towns around here. What that does, that actually helps out our tax rate in the end. So it's kind of a perverse, yay, our property values are going down, but that does help our tax rate, as we'll get to the page at the back of this budget that goes through all of that. So, in trying to position ourselves best for what may be coming next year and the subsequent years in regards to Act 46, it's best that we felt best that we get up as close to the cap as possible, knowing that our tax rate was actually going to go down this year. So it was an opportunity for us to get as close to the cap as possible without going over, and position ourselves for next year, because if we have a cap next year, that's in flux right now, or we'll probably have one, but how you calculate it is in flux up at Montpelier. It'll be based on, well, if it was done the way it was done this year and prior years, it'll be based on the equalized per pupil cost and the amount that you are increasing that cost. So if we could put our per pupil cost as high as we could, but under the cap and not incur a penalty, that'll better position us for next year and subsequent years based on the education funding formula. So the reason we put it in legal fees was twofold or threefold as well. One is because of Act 46. We felt that it was prudent that we have some funds in there so that we could get our own counsel if we need that. Right now, the study committee, the Act 46 study committee, that is studying the options under Act 46, has legal counsel, but that legal counsel's fiduciary responsibility is for the SU and the study committee, not for the town of Dummerston. So we felt it was prudent to have some funds in legal if we need to use them. If we don't use them, that's another bonus for next year, because they'll roll over and those funds will be available to be applied to next year's revenue, because we'll have a surplus. So that'll help for next year's costs as well. A third reason for putting them into legal, is that if we put them somewhere else, we didn't want them to get spent just because they were in the budget. So we figured we'd put them in legal, we'd hold them there if we needed it, but if we didn't need it, it would roll over. If we put them somewhere else, like adding a position, or we wouldn't get them back. And we just wanted to have that money in there as a buffer to help us. And I apologize, there's a lot of reasons there. It's complicated, and I'm happy to clarify if I stumbled and confused anybody, but that's the reason it's there.
Any other questions? Yes, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Glickman. I just wanted to offer a point of clarification about Jody's comment on the food services program. I believe Dummerston is actually the only school in the district who's not currently participating in the farm to school program.
And if I could make just a comment about the legal fees, this is Typically, this is a diversion from the way this board has normally developed budgets. Normally, we have specifically allocated money like that for like the capital fund or a specific purpose. So it does represent a different way of looking at things. So, any other questions?
Paul?
Hi, Paul Normando. This is more of a comment on the layout of the financials for the school budget. I noticed that you're laying it out by function, but in terms of reading it, it would be much beneficial to me anyway, and I hope it's to other people, that if the headings identified the functions and the detail associated with the functions followed the heading. In this case, the detail is above the function, and you don't realize you're getting there until you look at the bottom line. So it's just in terms of making it easier to follow you when you're explaining it and to follow the logic of what you're talking about.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, the central office is working with the software provider on that, so.
Any further debate on the budget? Yes, question there?
William Collins. I have a question on special education SU assessment. It's
Yes.
a high number, 643,000, up 214,000. Often you have equalized student numbers as a metric for comparison from one district to another, one school to another. Is there any such thing for special education? How many kids are we talking about here that this 500,000 covers?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can certainly get you that information. What? 24, Joe Carroll says.
Any other debate on the budget? Okay.
So if I could take you through the next page, which is page 38, I'll give you the property tax scenario for the upcoming fiscal year. So if you look at the top of page 38, this assumes a $1 base rate. Line 1 and line 7 show our budget amount, proposed budget amount of 3.4, almost 3.5 million. If you go to line 14, that is our net education spending less offsetting revenues. And that is what we use to help determine our tax rate. Line 15, as Dan mentioned, we have seen a one-time increase in our equalized pupil count, unless we've got a whole crop of new kids coming in that we're not aware of. This is specifically related to universal pre-K. So that 5.3% increase in equalized student number is due primarily to that, and we probably won't see that again next year. It's also important to keep in mind with the equalized student numbers that it's a 2-year average, so you don't get crazy fluctuations. If you go down to line 25, that's the cap for this year, $17,219. Our spending is shown in line 27, and it's $17,214.12. When all is said and done, if you go down to line 31, that is the equalized homestead tax rate for K to 8. You factor in line 32, which is our CLA, as Dan mentioned. Unfortunately, our property taxes, our property values are going down. But that does help us, in addition to the small boost in equalized pupil numbers, and it gets us to line 33, which is our equalized homestead with the CLA adjustment, and that dollar amount is $1.12, almost $1.13, which represents a 5.4% reduction from the previous fiscal year. If you continue on down the sheet, you'll see line 37. That is the rate for Brattleboro Union High School. They have also had a decrease in their spending, a almost 2% decrease. When you add lines 31 and 37, you get line 38. And when that is adjusted for CLA all around, the final tax rate for the coming fiscal year for a homestead is $1.65, which represents a little over 5% decrease. And again, this is primarily due to, for once in a blue moon, things working with us. We've had an increase in the equalized pupil number. Our CLA has increased, and it really, really helps. So we have a better scenario to report this year for property taxes.
You all set? Anything else? Okay. Any further questions for Amy?
How many students are we educating there?
About 156 in this building. Yeah.
Any other questions? Sam?
I'm just trying to understand the connection between...
Can you say your name, please?
My name is Sam Farwell, sorry.
Thank you.
The connection between the budget that the board sets and the tax rate that the town is faced with. It looks like line 29 takes our per pupil number and divides it by this figure, 9,870. So it looks as if our per pupil spending was 9,870, then our tax rate would be $1. Is that, am I? Dan's nodding his head. So there is some connection between the budget we set and the tax rate we pay. The tax rate, the initial tax rate is set by the state, but then we have some variance depending on the per pupil spending.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what the board tries to do, typically when we develop a budget, is we look at various scenarios. We look at level service, level funding, and then go from there based on what the numbers look like. And, you know, if level service is too much of an increase, then we look at level funding, and Joe Carroll's been really creative with the staff in terms of working with level funding budgets to shift things around and actually really offer more opportunities for the school and its programming.
Thank you. I absolutely agree. I've been watching the budget process for a number of years, and the board works very hard, and Joe Carroll works very hard to do exactly what you're saying, and I support this budget. I think it's excellent. Obviously, what I just pointed out shows that we have a high per pupil spending, and we do. It's one of the highest in the state. I, however, as a parent and taxpayer, feel that we get what we pay for, and we have an excellent school, and every dollar is worth it.
Yes.
Suzanne Weinberg. I guess Sam just showed me it's okay to make comments here as well as questions. I just want to say, I don't know what the procedure is for raising the salaries of the school board, but when I voted aye for a $500 per person amount for this kind of work, it felt really weird. And I just want to say, whatever way we can maybe up that to something a little more respectful, I would be for that. It's hard work.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we approve the school board to expend $3,475,661 which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of $17,214 per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is 0.6% higher than spending for the current year. All in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed your school budget. Before we move on to Article 6, several of our legislators are here. I'll invite them to come up and address us. Jeanette, you've been waiting. You want to go first?
No, they go first.
Oh, okay.
Good morning. Whoa. That's a loud one. My name's David Deen, and I would like to thank you for the continued honor of serving as your representative in the Vermont House. I serve as chair of Fish and Wildlife Water Resources Committee, and I am the ranking member of the House Rules Committee. We're doing important work in both committees. That's not what I'm going to talk about today. Today I want to talk about the future. That's what I think about as your representative. I believe that being part of the legislative forum and helping shape public policy requires me to think about the future. I think about our future, my children's future, my grandchildren's future, and soon my great-grandchildren's future. In keeping with those thoughts about the future, I introduced and Chairwoman Carolyn Partridge, Chair of Agriculture and Forest Products, successfully moved through her committee and through the House a bill to create a Pollinators Protection Committee. It does not sound like much in the setting of town meeting, but think about it. Nationally and worldwide, pollinators are stressed and their numbers are declining. If we lose our pollinators, we do not eat. The bill will make this committee responsible to monitor the species level, health, react to any documented problems, and advise government if there are problems with our pollinators so we can react in a positive way to protect them. Next sheet's upside down. Going beyond that, I think about climate change. We've seen Tropical Storm Irene and other events as real-life indicators of climate change. We know that somewhere in Vermont every year there is flooding from violent weather, and that climate shifts are taking place right before our eyes. The latest flooding was in the North Country just this past week. Think about it. There have only been 3 days in all of winter 2015-2016 so far with temperatures below zero. Come on. I've only been here for 40 years, but I know that is not right. So I introduced a bill to establish a revenue-neutral carbon tax. The theory being that you tax what you do not want and reduce taxes on things that you do want. I am the lead sponsor, and along with Michael, on a bill that would increase taxes on all forms of fuel that increase carbon emissions, something we do not want, and use the revenue produced to reduce property taxes, reduce sales tax, further reduce consumption of fossil fuels through an increase in low-income and senior weatherization programming. We want to lower costs for our homes, food, products we need, heating costs, and raise costs on carbon emissions. Unfortunately, Political considerations have ensured that the bill is not receiving attention this year. This is an election year, in case you haven't noticed. I am convinced, though, that in a soon-to-come session, a carbon tax will receive the attention due this pressing problem. And then I have a question. Have any of you been reading the stories in the national and regional press that fish populations are falling significantly, particularly freshwater fish of particular interest to me? Well, I'm especially concerned. As you know, I'm a confirmed fisher. And the problem that I want to talk about has now been documented in the Susquehanna River, the Delaware River, and even our own Lake Champlain. The problem is that fish cannot spawn normally because they are showing signs of intersex development. Fish are no longer male and female, but are intersex, male and female in the same fish, and do not successfully spawn. The cause of the problem seems to be the chemicals we put into our waters. In response, I introduced a bill to require drug manufacturers to be responsible for their products, from manufacture all the way through proper disposal in a way that does not affect our environment. It seems this bill, too, will wait another year before the legislature takes action. And if I go back, I intend to pursue both of those pieces of legislation. I want to thank my district mate, Mike Mrowicki, for producing our newsletter, and we will have them here shortly. In leaving Putney, we left him in Putney, so we need to go get him and bring him here. But I thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to come here and share some of our work. And thank you again for the opportunity to serve you and bring your voice to Montpelier. Up in the beehive of activity at the State House this year, it's busy as usual as your part-time citizen legislature tries to cram a year's worth of work into 4 months. And my committee, again, is House Human Services, and this year it's taken on a greater urgency, and in some instances, it's literally become a matter of life and death. With the headline deaths of 2 young children last year at the hands of family members, and then the murder of a state social worker outside her job, her place of employment, these are some of the concerns we're dealing with. And since that murder, the number of threats against DCF workers has doubled. So the workers are asking us for protection plans and how they can more safely do their work at the same time protecting children. These are dire concerns, and they need to be addressed, and we are. There's good news, though, coming out of the Agency of Human Services as well, though. Our programs to help families out of poverty, and those are usually single mothers with children, seem to be working, and we are actually seeing a reduction in those families needing public assistance for the 3rd year in a row. In 2012, 5,100 families were in the Reach Up program, sometimes called the welfare program. In 2015, that was down to 3,900 families, a decrease of 20% in our poverty assistance program. Well, we hope to continue that trend because it works better for us if we can help families get out of poverty and we can help people break that cycle of poverty. Having a growing economy helps as well, and that's where there's some more good news. The Vermont economy continues to grow, albeit at a slower 3% rate than we'd like, but it is growing. And Vermont last year was one of the few states in the nation that actually had an increase in real wages. And again, Vermont's unemployment rate is still one of the lowest in the country. I mention this because obviously there's a presidential election and there's going to be an election for a new governor, and there's a lot of rhetoric that's flowing back and forth about how we're doing what. And one of the things I hope we can continue is the Vermont way of maintaining civil discourse If anybody's watched any of one side of the presidential primaries, I would call them anything but civil. And one of the things I take pride in Vermont is we keep it civil. And when it comes to the economy, you're going to hear some people talking about nothing but gloom and doom. And then some people would counter, like myself, to say, I think we're actually doing okay, considering we're still only a few years out of the greatest recession in 60 years. When I hear all the gloom and doom talked about, I say, well, where is this coming from? And I think people have their own opinions. Recently, we had the head of the Vermont Chamber of Commerce come down here, and listening to her, her opinion seemed to be that the governor and legislature don't know much about running an economy. And then, not long afterwards, I looked at the financial ratings for bonds that we get from the major financial rating systems, and we're all top-notch. So I'm saying there's a cognitive dissonance here. So I looked, and I want to share what Moody's Financial Services shares about the Vermont economy and why they gave us a AAA rating. Vermont's AAA rating reflects its strong financial management, which features conservative fiscal policies, consistent governance, and a proven commitment to maintaining healthy reserve balances. The state's debt is modest, and its economy, while small for a state, is vibrant. The stable outlook reflects the state's proven ability to continue operating on a balanced basis and maintaining a solid rainy day fund regardless of economic cycles. Now, that's not my opinion, that's from Moody's. So when you hear some of the rhetoric about what's going on with the economy, that's one place you can look. That's not so much an opinion, but the place that sets the bar. Now, all 25 committees of the House and Senate have a list of issues that are important to them, and we need to keep track of them all. But two of the hotter issues have been financing reform in health insurance and education. Our health insurance reform continues, and later this year, you'll be hearing more about accountable care organizations as a way to control spending, and I think we need to pay attention. These seem to be similar to the HMOs we had several years ago, which worked for a couple of years and then they didn't work and we had to start looking for something else. Now, regarding education and property taxes, there are certainly many concerns that have been raised statewide and locally about Act 46. This has been the attempt to slow down school spending as student enrollment declines by way of consolidating districts. Now, I am one that had hoped we could have taken more time on that bill. There's some good things happening right now in discussions like the Act 46 Study Committee, which I had hoped we could have done before putting something in statute. I believe locally our schools are doing a great job. All you have to do is walk the halls or visit or volunteer here and you know that the school is doing a good job, our kids are working hard, and they're producing. As Sam said before, he feels like for the spending, the value is there. And I would agree in all three towns that David and I represent. If we want to focus on costs, let's focus on the drivers, especially those costs that schools have no control over, like special education and health insurance. Now, what I'm hoping is we just amended the bill this year to pull out the spending caps for next year. And what I hope is we can continue to keep amending this and get to a better place that keeps the focus on our kids and supports our schools in helping our kids get that 21st century education that they want. In closing, I want to thank my district mate, David Deen. He has been a tireless and long-time champion for a cleaner environment and cleaner water. And I respect his work, and I've certainly learned a lot from watching him. And lastly, I want to remind you, we want to hear from you. I hope we stay accessible to you, but for whatever your issue is, or your questions, your suggestions, we want to hear from you. On the legislative website is our contact information, and later I'll have some town reports. So please, feel free. Our work is not going to be as effective as it can be without hearing from you, so I appreciate that chance. So thanks again for listening, and thanks for the chance to represent you in Montpelier.
Thank you again. And every year when I come or go to any town meeting, I say, it is truly an honor to represent you, and I'm so happy that I keep getting sent back. And the first couple years, and I do mean that, the first couple years, I only voted on a few issues, so I didn't make too many people mad. After 13 years, I've probably made every single one of you mad about some vote I've taken. So I appreciate the ability to go back, and I hope I'm doing a good job for you. We did hear, it was mentioned about the dysfunction in Washington. We've had some pretty testy issues in the Senate this year, and I believe that we approached them with civility and respect for each other. I think you should be proud of the Vermont legislature, and that includes everybody. That includes people that I agree with and people that I disagree with, because everybody is there to do what they think is the best for Vermont. None of us would be there for the power, the money, or the glory, believe me. So I sit on two committees. I sit on Judiciary in the morning, and I chair Government Operations in the afternoon. In Judiciary, we've been looking at a lot of issues that tend to balance the individual rights with the needs of the broader society. And that includes things like privacy. We had a bill on privacy this year that tried to address drones. The phones, when can government get access to what's on your phones, either what's called the metadata or the actual texts of what you're using on your phones? When can we collect DNA samples from people who've been accused of crimes? Because there's a huge issue here about the individual rights and the societal needs. Another one is what David was referring to with the DCF workers. We have a bill before us right now that would make a new crime out of threatening speech. And it's very hard to do that balance, because there is freedom of speech, but you really can't be threatening people with bodily harm. And so it's a balancing act, and every time we make a decision, we tend to move the scales in one way or the other. We also, the Judiciary Committee just passed a bill it passed the Senate, it has not gone to the House yet, that would legalize and regulate marijuana in the state of Vermont. And, well, I don't know if that was a reaction to that or what, but so we spent a lot of time on this, and I've worked on this issue for some time. My bottom line is that prohibition did not work. It has not worked. We have more kids having access to marijuana and other drugs than to alcohol. When we went around the state, and we have 13-year-old pages in the State House. When I talked to them, they said, if I want to get alcohol, I have to find somebody over 21. They have to go to the store to be willing to buy it for me and then give it to me. If I want marijuana, I can go to the bathroom at my middle school any day of the week. That's disturbing to me. And I think that if what we're hearing is that regulation is what's making it harder to get, then I believe we ought to regulate. And this is a bill that would regulate and license cultivators and retailers. And you should just be aware that there's a lot of statistics going around out there. Some of them are in a big report that was put out about Colorado, and it's called the Rocky Mountain High Intensity something or other. I can't remember all the words. If you look at those statistics, it always puts the balance over here. They still have 40% of the marijuana sales in the black market. Well, that means they've eliminated 60%, right? But they always present the negative part of the statistics. And what you should know is that group is an arm of the DEA. So of course they're going to skew their statistics. In government operations, we deal with elections, municipal issues, the structure of government, law enforcement, state employees. This year, one of the things we're dealing with is law enforcement. In the state of Vermont, you can only decertify a police officer for two reasons. One, they can't meet the academy requirements, maybe they can't pass the physical or whatever, or they commit a felony. Those are the only two reasons we can decertify a police officer. And if you read the papers lately, it has caused a lot of problems around the state. Of course, the most famous one, if any of you remember that far back, was Paul Lawrence in a book called Mocking Justice, who was a really bad apple. You should read it sometime and it'll scare you. But we're dealing with that this year. Two other things we're dealing with is an ethics commission, both an internal ethics panel for the Senate, because our Constitution says that we determine our own qualifications and who should be a member, but also an independent ethics commission. And I will just say one word here about if there's a group called Public Integrity, and they do a survey every year, and then they determine what grades we get. People say we get a D-, and we do get a D-. There are only 3 states in the country that got above a D-, so I don't think we're that bad. But one of the things, the kinds of questions they ask are this: do you, as legislators, have a policy around nepotism when you're hiring your staff? Well, no, we don't have a policy because we don't have any staff to hire. So why would we write a policy about it? But so when they ask that question, we get an F. And those are the kinds of questions that are asked. Check out this survey, and you can see that it isn't quite all it's cracked up to be. The other thing we're looking at is divestiture in our retirement funds from fossil fuel investments. And this is a huge issue. And we've heard from people on both sides of this. And I think the question is not so much when or if we should, but when and who's going to make the determination. Is it the VPIC board, the investment board, or is it the legislature that's going to say, you've got to do this now? When we heard from Bill McKibben, one of the things he said is, here you are suffering from climate change. Irene caused a lot of problems. We're having flooding all the time. We have a year this winter with no rooms and meals tax. So what you're doing is these companies that you're investing in are costing you as a state a lot of money. So we need to figure that out. And I think the question is just who will make the decision and when will it be made, not will it be made. So I just want to thank you again and remind you to visit the State House. Come up and see us. It's fun. If you let us know before you're coming, we'll give you your own private little tour and show you how things really happen up there. And contact us. We're home all this week. So if you want to sit down and have a cup of coffee or anything, give me a call. Thanks.
Are there any questions for our legislators?
Thank you. Chuck Fish, can you hear me? Hello, is this on? Yes. All right, good. A question for Senator White, if I might. I'm one of those cantankerous people who have been vocal about Act 46, which I consider a very bad law. And I've heard that you, in fact, voted for it, and I respect you as a legislator, so I would like to ask if, in fact, you did vote for it.
I did.
And if you did, why you did. And do you, in fact, consider it a very good law?
I voted for it. I think that, and I'll be quite honest here, I'm not sure that I had a complete understanding, and I thought there were enough safeguards in there that it wasn't going to have the effect that it had. And were I voting again this year, I probably wouldn't vote for it.
Reed Miller. While we have a captive audience, I'm going to go right to 46 as well. And a little bit of history. When we go back into the 1800s, we had area schoolhouses on each road. And they were funded by the members that were on that road. People came, had supper. Then you move away for a little more control. And what ultimately we have now is we've gone away from that complete control to less control with the board coming down from bureaucracy. I stood up there and explained how 60 worked to these folks, so I'm familiar with it. Now what we're talking about is dissolving this community as we know it, this school community. This is no longer going to be our school, our building, which we paid for. It will then be someone else's. These children who are our children, our students, will be in other ownership. We will no longer have that. And having gone through and chaired the middle school committee with Putney Dummerston, that came back, both towns saying we don't want to have this, having explained Act 60 where you folks are, which was coming down from the state to help build a better mousetrap. That didn't work. Now you're asking us to give this up, go to a more central without ownership, and you think that that's going to be better. So I'm asking you to consider what you actually voted for and what you're taking away. And the pattern is not working. It hasn't worked. It's not getting any better. And we can go on and tell some very specific stories, but if you can consider that, and if you're willing to have us come visit, can we come up and build some legislation that says we choose to rescind this? And I would encourage you to have courage, because this question takes real courage, because nobody in this room that I'm familiar with actually gets the service they pay for or receives what they pay for. It's not a balanced system, and so it takes a lot of courage to be in the middle and put the two things together down the line. And what we're choosing to do now with this new program does not do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the question and for the opportunity to talk to that. And I agree with you. I think we should have gone more slowly with this. But here it is. We did try to repeal it this year when we amended the bill to take out the spending caps. And you know, the fact is it passed by a wide margin this year, and the attempt to repeal it failed by a significant margin. And what I'm saying is we need to keep going back. I'm not ready to give up this. I'm not ready to give up here in Putney or anything. I think this is an essential piece of democracy right here, and it's not been talked about a lot, about how that bill damages this venue right here. What I'm suggesting is we continue to work together to try and make this better, to work within the structure that's there right now, but also to go slow. And I'm glad that the local Act 46 committee has decided to go slow. I think there was initially a push to get a vote later this spring or summer. But I think this is going to continue to evolve. I think as people see the ramifications of this, there'll be other ways that we look at it, and I know I'm going to keep working to make this better, but especially this is not something I'm willing to give up. And the fact is that if we take away this school board, there's not going to be direct debate or vote right here. It'll be all at the high school, and that's the consolidation piece that I really don't approve of. So let's keep working together on this, and let's keep making sure that, you know, we make sure our schools stay good. I mean, they're doing a great job here. Dummerston kids are going off to their next stage, ready for that, and I want to continue that. So my advice is, and this is what I've told the folks in Putney, go slow. Let's see how this evolves, but let's keep working to amend this.
There, Graham, go ahead. Hi, state your name. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm Ines McGillian. I'm wondering if you could address us and let us know what types of amendments are being proposed right now in the legislature, and also how, I don't think any of them, from what I've heard, are significant enough in terms of protecting Dummerston. I want to commend the study committee for the work it's done so far. I believe it has significantly slowed down the process. The proposal that was being considered up until just recently was a merger with 5 towns, including Brattleboro, which would have diluted Dummerston's voting power to 11%. And this had significant governance repercussions. Now, I believe that is no longer on the table, but we are still looking at other potential mergers that may include Brattleboro, which would still give us a very diluted governance structure. And this is an irreversible process. And I would urge our study committee to consider taking slow and deliberate action Because my understanding is that Act 46 may still be changed. There are significant penalties for not merging with other towns. And my belief is that Dummerston is a great school on its own, and that we could satisfy the standalone option and justify our independence to the state. But I don't think that this law is protective enough of Dummerston, and I would urge you to consider proposing legislation that would change Act 46 significantly.
I will say that I don't serve on the Education Committee, so I don't know what the details are of what's being proposed right now. I am busy with my own 2 committees, and I hate to say that I don't know all the details, but I don't know the details, and I don't know if even if you talk to somebody on one of the education committees, they would have the details worked out yet. So I can't respond to what the amendments are.
What I would say to your point, or the question is what's happening right now, I don't think there's going to be further amendment in this session. You know, we have another 2 months to go, and then we'll be back next year. But I agree, each of the 3 towns that we represent, Dummerston, Putney, and Westminster, have some special qualities about it that really deserve to be preserved. And, you know, there's school choice, because the Westminster school goes up to grade 6. But what's happening here in Dummerston works, and we want to make sure it continues to work. And I agree, the thing to do is to go slow, because I think as this goes on, this bill will evolve. And what I want to do is work with you to help put something together, like you said. If you want to create a standalone structure, then we can work to do that. We really have until 2019, until that hard deadline, so we've got a lot of time. I don't think in the next year, with the spending caps removed, I don't think Dummerston is going to be in a bad situation, and maybe Frank can yes or no to that financially. And I don't know how much this year you used a spend down of reserves to get under the caps, but that's a concern statewide. But we will continue to work on this, and this is an essential piece. Our children are our future. I think there's some good intentions, and around the state, like I said, this is popular in a lot of places, because there are some very small schools, 50 students, below that it may help. But we already do a good job, so I don't know why we want to upset the cart to the extent that it could.
Richard, your hand.
Richard Epstein. Just thank you, Michael, and other representatives. I keep hearing you want to take your time, and I think that's great. But to be more specific, it's not just about time. I just urge you, as you keep looking at this, to be less punitive in the approach. Absolutely, some school areas might do really well with Act 46, and they deserve to look to get something better. But that shouldn't come at a cost of being punitive to those who might not want it. So as a specific, as you review this, I would just urge you to say, how can we reduce the punitive measures on this?
You're right.
Only carrot, no stick.
Okay.
And we did pull that out for 2018. You know, Dummerston may have gotten into penalties, but we pulled that out.
Jody?
Jody Normando. I have been involved in going to all the school board meetings and study committee meetings since this began. It has been a very painful experience watching the study committee rush to meet the accelerated merger, which had that quick timeline. The incentives are being promised. When you really break it down, they are nothing to us and probably would cost a whole lot more. I want to switch a little bit right here to you legislators, because I have been in contact with many of the legislators in the area who voted for this bill. And And I asked them why, because I knew that they were not in favor of this bill. They were very against the bill. It seems like there's kind of a bullying up in Montpelier, that if you don't vote for a bill, if you're on the committee, then you kind of don't get any favors down the road in recognizing your abilities. Or if you put something into a bill, one of the legislators said the other day that she put something in the bill, so she voted for it. She didn't want to because she had put something in the bill, but then when it went to conference committee, they took it out. So she was quite upset about it. So I'm really upset that our legislators don't just stand up there and say, I am not going to vote for this. I don't care what you do to me. This is what I don't believe in. And it really frustrates me because you're representing us, not necessarily you guys, but you're representing us. I've been told this was by a legislator that this was a stupid bill, was a very bad bill, voted for it. So I'm encouraging you to stand up for us and stand up for what you believe in. And it's not Act 46.
Any other questions or comments? The front, please.
Opeyemi Param, and it's a comment and a concern, a question and a concern. You spoke of the cannabis legislation, and I know that Rebecca Bailing voted against it, but she said it was because it didn't go far enough, and it still it still prohibited individual growers. My question is, on legal medical marijuana, do you have an indigent person law that would allow people to grow 6 plants or whatever at this moment in time? And would that go away, or would that stay?
This law does not affect the medical marijuana law at all. The people who currently have cards will continue to have their cards. The dispensaries will continue to operate. As a patient or a caregiver, you'll still be allowed to grow a certain number of plants. This doesn't affect that at all. And yes, there is no provision in we're not calling it recreational, we're calling it adult use as opposed to medical. And there is no provision in there for home grow, just like there is no provision for home grow now. It's against the law to grow it now at your home, unless you're a patient, and it will continue to be against the law. Personally, I felt that we should allow people to grow 2 or 3 plants at their home, not for sale. Once you sell, you're against the law if you don't have a permit. But it would not have passed. And in my mind, it's more important to make this first step and then be able to change it than to not make the step at all.
Thank you. And the reason I asked was because I'm a retired physician and I'm seeing people use cannabis to get off of opioids.
Yes.
And it's not being talked about yet. And to use cannabis to get off of psychoactive drugs for mental illness.
Right. We're seeing with patients, particularly who are using it for pain management, that there's a huge decrease in the amount of opioids being used. And the recovery community and the Turning Point organizations around the state are very interested in this because that's what they see when they are dealing with people who are addicted to opioids.
Joe?
Yes, I'm Joe Cook. I have a follow-up question for Senator White. And I understand your point about the availability of alcohol versus marijuana in our schools and elsewhere. But I think if this bill passes, which I think is entirely possible this year, the black market is not going to dry up, and marijuana will only become more available to youngsters at an impressionable age. And I guess my question of you and all the other legislators is, what message does this give to our children, and what will this do for motivation for young adults that are at an impressionable age? Thank you.
Thanks. I think we will continue to disagree on this probably, but what I saw is that when kids tell me that it is harder to get alcohol than to get marijuana, it tells me that there's something wrong with our laws around marijuana. Prohibition has not worked, and we have an increase in the black market, and the guy that's selling the marijuana to that kid has other things in his backpack too. It's not, so he doesn't happen to have marijuana today, but maybe try these cute little pills. You might like them. And this is what we heard from kids. This isn't adults telling us what kids are seeing. This is kids telling us this. So I believe that we will reduce the access. In Colorado, if you read the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Report, they'll tell you that there was a huge increase in teen use. The state of Colorado that runs the program and has their own statistics that are much more reliable because they don't come from the DEA, has told us that there has not been an increase. There was a very slight increase in teen use the year it was passed, and then it has decreased because they've put more money and more emphasis on education and prevention. And that's how we dealt with the tobacco issue with kids, is education around why you shouldn't do it. I personally don't think anybody under 21 should use marijuana, and I don't care if anybody over 21 uses it or not, but I don't think anybody under 21. And this bill has more safeguards. It deals with marijuana the same way as alcohol for under 21. So if you use it, if you get caught with it, you're in violation. If you supply it to somebody under 21, you are in deep trouble. And if you supply it to somebody under 18, the penalty is doubled. And nobody under 21 can't go into a retail outlet, they can't go into a cultivator, and we're putting more money into education and prevention. And you're right about the black market. It will not completely go away, but in Colorado, they've decreased it by 60%. So it seems to me that 40% black market is better than 100%.
Just a quick follow-up question. In Colorado and elsewhere, has this been a highway safety issue?
No, here's what's happened in Colorado. They are making more stops for impaired drivers. And if you look at what our sheriff in Windham County said when he testified, he said that he has talked to one of his counterparts in Colorado, and what they do is, he said, if you stop somebody right now and you smell alcohol in the car, what you do is you immediately do a sobriety test. If a law enforcement right now stops somebody for marijuana, they generally don't go for the impaired driver, but they go for the possession. So what in Colorado they've seen is that instead of going for possession now, because it's not against the law, they're going for impaired drivers. So yes, they are catching more people on impaired drivers, but they're already out there driving. They haven't increased necessarily. And one of these statistics by the Rocky Mountain High Intensity, I wish I could remember the whole name, but is that they're seeing more fatalities because of marijuana. And what the Colorado guy said is that is true because they never tested before. So if they never tested and now they do test, of course they're going to have an increase. And not only that, they don't have any standard for testing. So some medical examiner out here in that county says, he does the tox screen, and he says, oh, there was a little tiny bit of marijuana in this fatality, so I'm going to check that it was marijuana caused. He said there's no standards, and they have not seen an increase. And they've seen a decrease in their crime rates. I urge you to look at some of the real statistics that have come out from the state of Colorado, not from the DEA group.
Can I do one quick spoiler alert? Spoiler alert, folks. The bill just made it to the House before we came home for town meeting break. It has now been referred to our Judiciary Committee. It has 5 committees to go through on the House side, as it did.
No, it only went to 3.
We're going to be a little bit more thorough. And the last, this is Senate House stuff.
He means they're going to just beat it to death. They're going to.
The last time leadership took an informal count, and contrary to oft-repeated myths, there is no power broking going on at the House. As the preliminary counts indicate, there is less than tepid support for this bill in the House.
Deborah?
Hi, my name is Deborah Ayer, and I just wanted to share some information. One of the things in this debate about legalizing marijuana that caught my attention was an NPR report, and forgive me, I don't have the statistics handy, but I encourage you to look at some of the NPR reporting on the issue. One of the things that caught my attention was that there are just a few states right now that have legalized marijuana. Colorado, I want to say Nevada, but I'm not sure. They've seen a decrease, a significant decrease in drugs, specifically marijuana, coming over the border from Mexico and South America because it's no longer profitable. So the profit margin is being taken away, and it's affecting drug cartels outside our borders. That was one of the positive results that's been on my mind while I think through this issue myself.
Over here, Christian, you want to just use that mic?
Sure. Christian Navard. What I wanted to ask is, how much has this issue consumed the legislature? It just seems I'm always reading so much about this issue. I mean, what other big issues other than the budget has this been taking a lot? Had this been the major issue you've been working on?
It went to the it was a bill introduced by Senator Benning from Caledonia, or from St. Johnsbury, and myself. It went to the Judiciary Committee. We we did take 5 public hearings around the state. We went to 5 different ones. That doesn't count as legislative time because it's all on our own. And we maybe had 6 or 7 days of testimony on it. And in the meantime, we did other bills also. And then it went to the Finance Committee where they maybe had 3 or 4 days. And then the Appropriations Committee where they had about 2 hours. So it has not, you have to remember, in the Senate, we have 11 committees. So we have 11 committees working on different issues, and each of those committees is dealing with more than one issue at a time. So this has, although this seems to be the lightning rod issue of the session, it has not consumed an overabundance of time.
Yes, Paul.
Paul Normando. I have a 2-part comment and statement and question. First of all, David, I commend you on the passage of the Clean Water Act. I think it was long overdue. We need to keep our waters clean in Lake Champlain. You also mentioned proposing a carbon tax, and this kind of applies to everybody, but my concern is that what are the impacts on the local government and our local towns and our local property taxes? The Clean Water Act has a part in it that I really am appalled at, and that is that each town will have to make a $400 application fee and a $2,000 a year permit fee in order to comply with the Clean Water Act. Now, all of that does is push the effort down to the local community again and affects our property taxes. Along the same lines, only on a different vein, I've been perennially concerned with the impact of property taxes on the education fund. The legislature and the governor have constantly used the education fund as a go-to place to find money to support general fund. They've underfunded it in 1 year, and changed the formula in another year, and they keep playing games with it. And we talk about property taxes, but then Act 46 comes along and it says, oh, well, we're going to do this so that we can save property taxes. That's what the original impetus was. So then it morphs into equity of education. So then we've lost the impact of trying to solve the property tax problem. So I'm concerned that legislators don't think about the property tax impact of when they institute mandates both on the educational system and on the municipal system. So I would encourage you to think about the local people where the rubber hits the road and when you're thinking about legislation and its relative impact on taxpayers. Thank you.
Well, again, contrary to popular myth, legislators do not just boop, pop up like mushrooms. The people I serve with have served on local school boards, been select board members, chair of select board, planning commission members, regional commission members. They have been involved with their community. And consequently, none of us ignore what might happen at the local level in terms of impact. Sometimes we get it wrong, as most people do, and as has been said several times up here this morning, that in fact we will go back, those things that have created problems or unanticipated or impacts, we will address that. In terms of the Clean Water Act, because not only did we think about it, but we put in place a mechanism to deal with those additional charges. It's called the Clean Water Fund. We created an expanded revenue source in order to put into the fund. We gave municipalities a priority within the fund as we move towards this new structure for keeping stuff out of our surface waters because of roads. If that proves to be inadequate, or that in fact we are passing the costs on to the local level without assistance coming from the state level that we thought we put in place, believe me, we will go back and revisit that issue to make sure that those resources get where we intended them to go. So I know that sounds defensive and whatever, but it's just that so many of the conversations that I have with my colleagues, be they senators or House members, we talk about our experiences at the local level. We talk about what we are hearing from people at the local level and what the anticipated impacts are going to be. And we try to react to them. So and of course we're people. So we don't get it right all the time. It just, isn't going to happen, folks. But we are going to try. Thanks.
That's what happens when you have a citizen legislature as opposed to professional legislators. We are all back in our own communities dealing with things every day.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Suzanne in the back, behind you, Bram.
I know it's getting to be lunchtime, but I want to just plant a seed for a totally different topic, which is the Affordable Care Act as it's manifest in Vermont. I think I speak for quite a few self-employed people who are under Medicare age who are really footing the bill for the expansion of Medicaid. We all probably think the expansion of Medicaid is a really good thing for society, but I was very frustrated with the legislature that you guys would not consider a payroll tax to put some of the burden, this was last session, spread the burden out amongst more people, including businesses that have a lot of employees and employees who have benefits and have steady jobs. So I really feel that the expansion of Medicaid has fallen unfairly on those of us who are self-employed and who are under Medicare age, and I'd really like to see this addressed, and I think Shumlin has met with a lot of resistance from the legislature on the issue.
I actually supported the payroll tax. I was happy to do it, and I fought as hard as I could, but couldn't get very far, obviously.
Well, we're not exactly powerless, but there were also some of us in the House, although we never actually, we have not yet seen a bill, but we know that our Ways and Means Committee will not be delivering that to the floor. And Some of us argued for it, and we lost, and it's the process.
Do you have a follow-up, Suzanne?
Yeah, I do. My understanding is that the bill that's currently being proposed is putting the burden on another small group of people, not the one that he was proposing last year. So this is a private, small private doctors and dentists, and it's for a smaller amount of money. And I know that also isn't going anywhere. So I don't want to say I really support trying to get more people covered, but I think it can't fall on the backs of a small number of people, especially when the coverage is crappy.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, and I think overall we're trying to get as many people covered as possible. And I agree, the governor had a good proposal last year. I don't think the proposal this year to tax independent doctors and dentists is going to go, but I think we're going to find another way. I keep coming back to the sugar-sweetened beverage tax as a way to both reduce the use of something that we know is harmful and dedicate it to that. So stay tuned. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll return now to the school district warning, Article 6, to transact any other business that may legally come before said town school district meeting. Amy.
First, on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for supporting our school yet again this coming fiscal year. And I think we also should take this moment to recognize Dummerston school staff, Jo Carroll, her teachers, her paras, all the support staff, as well as the supervisory union staff that helps Dummerston School maintain its level of excellence. And as you heard from the legislators and from your peers in the audience, Act 46 is looming large on the horizon. And as myself and Christina Naylor, Christina, you want to stand up and wave? We are your Dummerston representatives on the Act 46 WSCSU Study Committee. We've been meeting since November. It is an interesting process. I strongly encourage you to come to a study committee meeting, come to a Dummerston board meeting. If you want to find more, contact Christina and myself or any board member for more information. There's information available on the Vermont Agency of Education website, and there's also agenda and minutes on the SU website for the study committee meeting. The next meeting is on March 10th at 6 o'clock at Academy School. It is broadcast by Brattleboro Cable TV, and all past meetings, I think except for the first one or two, are in their video library. So if you want to go back and watch some really riveting video, you know, it might make for some interesting. I do, in addition to encouraging you to learn more about Act 46, think about what's best for our community, I really want to encourage you to think about what's best for students. Because that really, incentives aside, efficiencies aside, it really should be focusing on what we can do for our students. Christine and I have been working, we've sent out some emails through the town email list, thanks to Pam and her peers at Town Hall. We're going to continue to do that as we actually get some concrete information. This whole process has been very nebulous. The information about Act 46 and has been sort of a learn as we go, and it's not only us, it's the State Agency of Education. So it has been, the dust is starting to settle in terms of what we understand in terms of implications for member districts within WSCSU, and we are looking at a variety of options. You know, at times the conversation at study committee meetings and even at recent board meetings here has not been civil, and I would encourage everyone to embrace what Mike Mrowicki called as the Vermont way, where we can have civilized discussions about difficult changes and topics. The other thing that is coming up, in addition to the March 10th meeting at Academy School, the study committee is also meeting on March 17th. We generally meet about once a week, which is pretty exhausting. But on the 17th, at Putney Central School, Secretary of Education Rebecca Holcomb will be present, and she will be spending some time working and talking with the study committee about Act 46 and the committee's thoughts. So it really would be, if you aren't able to go up to Putney on that night, it would be a very good one to at least watch or follow up with on BCTV's video library. So I'm not going to take any questions about Act 46 because we will be here for hours. I'm going to go on to the next heads up type of thing is the Wyndham Wood Heat Initiative. The Dummerston Board's been working with them to access funds to look at upgrading our very old oil-fired furnaces with a more eco-friendly wood pellet system. You might be seeing a vote on that maybe in November as part of the whole election process. So that's just a heads up, and again, more information will be coming on that. I want to recognize two long-time school staff that are retiring. I don't know if they're here or not, but Lois Reed has been a para-educator at the Dummerston School for 33 years. She has been a valuable contributor to our school's success. And whenever I have been around here, when I had children in this school, she was sort of the calm in the storm. There would be this flurry of activity around her, and she would just be cool, calm, and collected. So, you know, thank you for Lois for providing that love and that stability to all of our students through the many years that you've been here. The other educator that I wanted to acknowledge, and I don't think she's here as well, is Terry Robinson. She has been with us for 37 years and has served as the school's literacy coach. I have a particular fondness for Terry because she is responsible for my youngest son becoming the very enthusiastic reader that he is today. Without him, I doubt he would be where he is, consuming 3 to 5 books a week. She has a loving, community-based classroom that really, the students come together, support each other, and her classroom motto seems to be, "Pobody's nerfect." And I think it really, it's a testament to her success with all the students whose lives she's touched through the years. And then, and finally, I would like Rick Mills to come forward. Rick is leaving the board after 8 years of service. He has been a voting member. In addition to his Dummerston School Board roles, he has served as a voting member on the WSCSU Supervisory Union Board, which involves at least 4 to 6 other meetings in addition to the Dummerston meetings per year. He has served as vice chair and I think even chair, no? Okay, vice chair on the Teacher Negotiation Committee, which can be extremely time consuming and very challenging. He has been our Dummerston Transportation Committee person, one of them, and he's been the one that's dealt with the unhappy parents about bus stop issues, their first point of contact. And he, while not on the study committee, he is attended and been an active, thoughtful participant in the process to date, and I hope he will continue to do so. He is kind, he's considerate, he's good-hearted, and he clearly learned in kindergarten, maybe not here, but that you treat other people and, like you want to be treated and follow that golden rule. Thank you, Rick, for your many years of service, and you will be missed.
Is there any other business to come before the town school district? Jody.
Jody Normando again. I just want to follow up from what Amy said. I do hope everyone keeps their eye on the ball for Act 46 because it's not going away unless we can really get something done up in the legislature. And the other options, even though we have gone down through and kind of slowed down on the accelerated merger, most of the other options do include mergers. The only one that really doesn't include merger is the stay the way we are. And in order to do that, we have to make a case to the State Board of Education. And so we need to have everybody on board if we want to stay the way we are. So watch it on TV, come to the meetings. You can talk to the study committee meetings people. You can talk to Inez or Chuck or Paul or me, who have been going to all the meetings of the study committee. And I have a huge folder of information and articles. And we aren't the only place in the state that's upset with it. So pay attention, because what happens to Dummerston and what happens down the road may get just slid right in, and we don't want that to happen. Thank you.
Reed.
A soft question
Reed,
for the...
could you state your name?
Sure, Reed Miller. A soft question for the 46 Study Committee. When you come to the community with, when we have meetings to find out what you know that we don't, that I don't understand, could you please come with some real financial answers? How does this benefit us? Real numbers, not just, this is going to happen and that might happen, but how does it actually benefit this community? Those will be direct questions when you first come and say we want to change things.
Anyone else? If there is no objection, we will adjourn the town school district meeting and recess for lunch. We'll reconvene the meeting at 1 o'clock. Thank you. We will now convene the town meeting portion. You'll find the warning on page 53. We'd like to encourage any people standing in the back to feel free to come to the seats in the front, and also encourage you all to avoid conversation in the back. Thank you. Article 1 concerns voting officials by Australian ballot, and so we will move to Article 2. To act on the auditor's report of the town accounts. Is there a motion?
There is. Cindy, I move we accept the auditor's report of the town accounts.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. It has been moved and seconded that we accept the auditor's report of the town accounts. Any discussion? Seeing none, you are voting to accept the auditor's report of the town accounts. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And Article 2 is passed. Article 3, to see if the voters will vote to authorize its select board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes. Is there a motion?
There is, Cindy. I move we authorize the select board to appoint a receiver of current and delinquent taxes.
And a second? Thank you, Geraldine. It has been moved and seconded to authorize the Select Board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes. Any discussion? It has been moved and seconded to authorize the Select Board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 4, to see if the voters will vote to raise the sum of $150,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs.
I will move that we raise the sum of $150,000 through taxes and appropriate the said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs.
Second. Zeke seconds. It has been moved and seconded to raise the sum of $150,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs. Steve, do you want to review for people how this works?
Basically what we do is we anticipate our future expenditures and we try to kind of raise a certain amount each year based on what we think our future purchases are going to be. And so this year we need to raise about $150,000 into the capital fund to keep that fund current and level for some purchases that we're looking at this year and in the future.
In the next article, you'll be voting on spending some of that money. This article is just about raising it. Are there any questions about that? Okay, it has been moved and seconded to raise the sum of $150,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have funded your capital fund. Article 5, to see if the voters will vote to authorize capital expenditures in the amount of $135,000 from the capital fund for FY 2017. Steve.
So this is where we spend your money. So I move that we authorize the capital expenditures in the amount of $135,000 from the capital fund for the fiscal year 2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize capital expenditures in the amount of $135,000 from the capital fund for FY17. I'm going to start with asking Steve to make a necessary, a proposed amendment to this amount.
Yeah, I'm going to propose amendment here. I think we had a misprint in the article that we didn't catch until this morning. And so I'm going to actually amend, I move that we amend the authorization of the capital expenditures to the amount of $154,000 from the capital fund for fiscal year 2017. And I'll elaborate after a second. Second.
So it has been moved and seconded that Article 5 be amended from an expenditure of $135,000 to $154,000. And now I'll ask Steve to explain that to us.
Okay, so this isn't, we think this is, or we pretty realize this is a misprint that we didn't catch till this morning. If you go to page 22, you'll see that for fiscal year 2016-17, that we need to purchase another dump truck, replace a dump truck, and that we need to update the computers in the town office. So I think what our concern was is this might have just been carried. This $135,000 was the same that we did last year, and we're afraid it might have just got carried forward. It doesn't change any of the capital budget plan. Those numbers were pegged in right. It doesn't change any of our operating statement figures. It just was a misprint in the warrant.
So the motion on the floor is an amendment to the original article so that the amount we are expending reflects what is in the capital plan. Are there any questions, any discussion about the amendment to the original article? Hearing none, the amendment that is on the floor is to change Article 5 to read, authorizing capital expenditures in the amount of $154,000 from the capital fund for FY 2017. All in favor of the amendment on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 5 has been amended. Now we return to Article 5 as amended. Is there any discussion? Or Steve, do you have anything else you want to?
No.
Okay. Any questions for the Select Board? Comments, discussion? Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we authorize capital expenditures in the amount of $154,000 from the capital fund for FY 2017. All in favor of the article as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 6, to see if the voters will approve total general fund expenditures of $411,746, of which $214,160 shall be raised by taxes and $197,586 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017. Is there a motion?
Yes, there is. I move that we approve total general fund expenditures of $411,746, of which $214,160 shall be raised by taxes and $197,586 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30, 2017.
And is there a second?
Second.
Steve seconds. You want to come up here, Zeke?
Sure. So this is the portion of the program where I try to take you through the budget and confuse you enough so that you'll vote in favor of it. So if you will refer to your hymnals on page 15. We'll start there. The bottom of the page, the summary of municipal taxes. And you'll see, once you're there on page 15, everyone there? Okay. You see what we voted last year, and then what we're proposing this year. And there's that taxes, $214,160 at the top. The highway budget, which we'll get to on the next article. The capital plan, $150,000 that you already voted on. And the highway structures fund, which will be coming up soon. So you can see that just off the top of my head, that looks like an $18,671 decrease over last year. So before you start jumping up on your chairs and throwing your town reports in the air, I would like to caution you that if you look on page 14, the top section, you'll see under 2013 surplus, 2015 surplus. Go over to the right-hand side of the page. There's an $87,120 surplus. Brothers and sisters, this is a huge surplus. So, not likely to come again. And it's from, your friends and neighbors who were able to catch up on delinquent taxes and the work of our delinquent tax collector in helping collect those funds. So if you go on to page 13, this is highway for the next article, but you'll see that budget there, $24,976 up at the top of the page. And that's left over from the wing wall project on the covered bridge. So we have some surpluses to work with, and so that's why you're seeing a decrease of $18,671 over last year, when actually our expenditures are about $52,000 higher than last year. It's these surpluses that are sort of bailing us out and make us look good. Okay, so with that preamble, let's move on to page 17. And this is where we get into how we are proposing to spend your money. And we have the section select board salaries, the clerical wages for a select board assistant, Vermont League of Cities and Towns assessment. They provide insurance and legal services to the town. The Wyndham Solid Waste Management assessment has gone down a little bit this year. Professional services, that's town attorney, and we expect to have a quiet year coming up. We hope so, at least. And then we have FICA, retirement, health insurance, and look at that. The insurance has gone up this year. Who would have thought? But overall, with that Wyndham Solid Waste reduction, slight decrease in our clerical wages, total select board expenditures are a little bit less this year. Moving down to administration, you'll see the town clerk, tax collectors going up. Pam McFadden had been working part-time, so for 2016, we had budgeted a part-time amount for that. We're going back to a 30-hour a week job for the town clerk now. We have assistant town clerks. We're going to have 2 of them. Pam McFadden has agreed to stay on and help us on with elections and other sundry items that come up. Going down through the list, the wages for the listers. They're estimating that they're going to spend 340 hours over the course of the year, and there are 3 of them. So that's how we arrive at that figure, and it's about $16 an hour. Down towards the bottom of the page, the wages for the delinquent tax collector. I can't speak for what the new board will do tomorrow, but it's probably a good chance that they might appoint Pam McFadden to be the delinquent tax collector again. And if they did do that, and Pam McFadden were to accept, theoretically she had planned to work about 3.5 hours a month on her delinquent tax collector duties. So, but you know, I left my magic 8 ball at home, so I can't make any real predictions today. Turning the page to page 18, we go to planning and zoning, a reduction in the wages for the zoning administrator. That's not because we're cutting the pay, it's because we're cutting the hours. Charlotte has been very efficient in her role as our zoning administrator and has caught up on some of the backlog of filing and other tasks that she had been working on. So we're thinking that's going to become a 12-hour-a-week job. We have postage and trainings, travel, all those sorts of things that the Planning Commission and the Zoning Administrator and the DRB, the Development Review Board, takes care of. And at this point, just a side note, Cindy Wilcox, who's been on the Planning Board for 17 years, let us know that she would like to step down at the end of the day today. So she has been... You know, I started to argue with her at lunch that 17 years really wasn't a really long time, but she told me before coming to Dummerston she'd worked for 13 years on another planning commission someplace else. And of course, I might discount that some, but she made a persuasive argument, so we're not going to, we're going to accept that resignation. Moving on, municipal building. We've got lawn care, electricity, computer expense. That $3,635 goes to what's called NEMRIC, and they do the backup for all of our computer records and provide IT service and advice. Public safety. You'll see that the sheriff's contract has gone up. At the beginning of June in this past year, he realized he had to increase the per hour cost that we contract with. And then we, in our budget session, decided to go from 18 and a half hours per month to 20 hours a month. So that comes out to $49 an hour. So we're proposing a slight increase in the Sheriff's Department coverage. Rescue, a small increase there in our assessment. Windham County Humane Society is level funded at $500. If you have any questions, you can ask any time. Under Fire Department, level funded at $49,500. The insurance, the fire department actually pays that back to the town, so that's what we call a pass-through. Moving over to page 19, we have emergency management, and if you look at the 2016 budget, it's $32,000. $5,000 came from the state, and the balance came from Entergy to fund our emergency management department. So that has, as of the end of June, we won't be getting that money anymore. So we are on our own, and we have proposed $3,000 for operating costs. That will cover cost of travel, meetings, the upkeep and maintenance of the generators that we have. We're proposing a stipend of $1,500 to our emergency management director and $500 to an assistant. So we're going to try out a $5,000 budget for this department and see how it goes. We'll see in the post-VY world how much time do we really need for our emergency management director. Waste collection, you'll see level funded. That $1,000 goes to pick up mattresses and tires around town. $100 for Green Up Day. Health and welfare, slight increase, just under 10% over last year. You voted to begin increasing the town's contribution to those organizations. You'll see the drop-in center and Morningside Shelter have zero, but that's because those two agencies combined and have become the Groundworks Collaborative. The cemeteries, $3,650. That's to repair some of the stones and to cover cost of mowing. Recreation Board requested $1,000. The community center has just asked that the town help out with some grading around the building. The Lydia Taft Pratt Library requested an extra $500 this year. Turning to page 20, under conservation, Northern Vermont, RC, and DC, that's helps us out. The Better Back Roads program is administered by that. They give us advice and come down occasionally to help us out. The Southeastern Vermont Watershed Alliance, this is a new agency. They do water testing on the West River and Connecticut and provide us with information about that. Conservation Commission, $750. Energy Committee, $350. A note about the Energy Committee. Alex Wilson has let us know he will not be seeking a new term on the Energy Committee. He's been there since the Energy Committee began. And I think it's only 7 years. Is that right? Something like that. And so we'll probably put... we'll probably put a little heat on him. We'll use Cindy Wilcox's, 17 years to try to get him to stay on a little longer. But the Farmland Protection Fund has a balance of $30,791.60 as of today. We're requesting another $2,500 to be put into that. The Historical Society of Windham County, $250. The county tax, which is set by the side judges. The money goes to the upkeep of the Superior Court building in Newfane. It goes for training for the Sheriff's Department, and goes up a little bit each year. Memorial Day expenses, flags for the graveyards. We have some bank service charges. And so that's how we arrive at that $411,746.
Are there any questions? Yes, Jody.
Hi, Jody Normando. Just a question. Why do we have bank service charges? I have accounts, and I have accounts for other people that I do stuff for, and I make sure that there's no service charges.
We switched banks from TD Bank to Merchants Bank, and I'm going to refer this question to our expert on such matters, our treasurer, Lori Frechette.
When we switched to, can you hear me?
Just be close.
When we switched to Merchants Bank, they do charge a $20 per month service charge. However, they do pay us interest. Now, whereas at TD Bank, we were not making any interest on the general fund whatsoever. So this year, we're hoping to make almost $1,400 in interest and then the $240 in bank fees.
That's a pretty good answer. Thanks, Lori. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve general fund expenditures of $411,746, of which $214,160 shall be raised by taxes and $197,586 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed your general fund budget. Moving on to Article 7. To see if the voters will approve total highway fund expenditures of $495,390, of which $348,414 shall be raised by taxes and $146,976 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017.
Cindy, I move that we approve total highway fund expenditures of $495,390, of which $348,414 shall be raised by taxes and $146,976 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017.
Is there a second? I'll second that. Joe seconds. It has been moved and seconded to approve total highway fund expenditures of $495,390, of which $348,414 shall be raised by taxes and $146,976 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017.
So, if you'll turn to page 16. This is our highway, how we plan to spend the money on the highway department. You'll see quite a bit goes to wages, the winter maintenance, a little higher. That's when they're plowing overnight, or we have much of this is level funded, crushing gravel. We increased chloride. Our expert on the board felt strongly that increasing chloride on the road, the dirt roads, helps keep the dust down and helps with the structural integrity of the road. So we weren't going to argue with that. We're planning on keeping on with the retreatment of roads. That's paving, repaving the roads. Okay, anything, line painting, that's always a popular item. Salt, sand, streetlights. There wasn't anything too controversial in our view on this. Are there any questions about that, though?
Any questions for Zeke? Yes, Suzanne?
Suzanne Weinberg, is it likely there's going to be a surplus for winter road maintenance and stuff from this easy winter that might come up since you drew out this budget?
That wouldn't be for this budget. It would be for the next budget.
You're asking about the current winter, though, Suzanne?
Yeah. So that's what I understand. Am I right? Yes, it would be for not this year's, the budget that we're discussing now, that if there was a surplus, then it would go towards the next fiscal year after that. And of course, the winter is not over. Yeah, don't be lulled into complacency. Like all hell could break loose tomorrow, you know.
So Zeke is making the point that a surplus for 1 year is not used the next year. It's used for the following year. Your question wasn't really answered, Suzanne. Are you satisfied?
It just means I've got a longer memory to make sure.
We count on people's short memories when we're making out the budget.
Great. Any other questions? Jody.
After listening to David Deen before lunch, I'm querying the select board as to putting chloride and salt and other things on the road. How does that mesh with the waterways, et cetera? And I'm sure you've talked about it.
I'll pass you on to our expert.
It doesn't take much to be an expert on this panel, I guess. So, Act 46 really deals with the runoff. I'm sorry? Not Act 46. 64, thank you. Yeah, let's not get into education. Act 64 deals more with the runoff, and so it's more how we're going to control the salt once it runs off the road and how we're going to control the water. I'll back up a little bit. The chloride actually improves your soil compaction, so it allows for less dust and less sand and gravel to run off your roads because they compact better. And the salt, obviously, we have to utilize the salt on our tire roads, paved roads, to protect everybody's safety. But what we're looking at with Act 64 is the water that runs off. We want to try to control it, slow it down so it doesn't erode, pick up other minerals before it goes into our streams and brooks and rivers. And I will admit, Lee does buy the much less, it's a special salt that we buy that's much less corrosive to our vehicles and less damaging to the ecology of the plants and things next to the road. So it's kind of two different issues, other than we do want to control our runoff and the real thing we want to do is protect the water that's running into streams. So I don't know if that answers your question, or. We're very well aware. I've attended personally several meetings on it, both from the farm side and from the town side, and have tried to be a proponent and working with Lee and the board to make sure we're ahead of this. And it is important to protect our waters. So.
Any other questions? Debate? The motion has been made to approve total highway fund expenditures of $495,390, of which $348,414 shall be raised by taxes and $146,976 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have a highway budget, highway fund. Article 8, to see if the voters will raise and appropriate a total of $15,000 to put in the Highway Structures Replacement Fund.
I move that we raise and appropriate a total of $15,000 to be put in the Highway Structures Replacement Fund.
Is there a second? Geraldine, seconds. It has been moved and seconded to raise and appropriate a total of $15,000 to be put in the Highway Structures Replacement Fund. Guru Dharm, do you want to tell us about that?
Sure, a little bit. We have 7 bridges and 42 culverts in town that are covered as highway structures. Culverts under 3 feet are provided for replacement and maintenance in another part of the highway budget. So this is a budget that looks to the future. For example, we're going to replace a culvert on Park Lawton Road, and for that we have to budget some money. Some of this is sometimes just part of a much larger grant for replacing these structures, as we did on Quarry Road this last year.
Any questions? Debate? It has been moved and seconded to raise and appropriate a total of $15,000 to be put in the Highway Structures Replacement Fund. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 9, to see if the voters will grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840.
Cindy, I move that we grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Steve. It has been moved and seconded to grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. Any questions about that, or anyone want to talk about the Grange? Okay, ready for the question? It has been moved and seconded. What a good idea. I've been reminded we should be thanking the Grange for today's lunch, which was excellent as always. Herb, can you make sure they know that we were just applauding for them? Thank you. Zeke has made a motion that we request Thai food next time. I'm not calling for a second on that one. Okay. It has been moved and seconded to grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and we'll have a good lunch next year. Article 10, to see if the voters will grant tax-exempt status to Green Mtn Camp for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. Where are you, Mark? There you are.
Mark Brown. I move that the voters grant tax exemption status to Green Mtn Camp for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840.
Is there a second? Chad seconds. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to grant tax-exempt status to Green Mtn Camp for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. Mark, do you want to give us a report?
Sure.
Thanks.
This last year, I think 1 month when I didn't attend a meeting, they voted me board member emeritus. And it's a very efficient sounding name, and kind of like that. Wasn't sure quite what it meant, but now I do. It means every year I get to, they want me to get up and talk. So I encourage you to turn to page 28, and maybe not right now, but to read it, because I'm going to hit a couple of bullet points here that I just want to point out. The camp continues in its dedication to Dummerston girls, and 26, I don't know what I had, that's what I have written down here. The camp is dedicated to Dummerston girls, and Billy wanted to point out that any Dummerston girl who wanted to come to camp, because of the strong scholarship support of everyone, every Dummerston girl who wanted to was able to come to camp. Billy also points out that 5 of the staff members at camp were Dummerston girls, and really strong, and all my connections with the staff have just been outstanding, lovely staff. And we'd love to have other Dummerston residents and groups take advantage of the unique facilities there at the camp. So talk to other board members. We do have a wonderful board now, and I'd also like to point out that there are a number of other Dummerston residents who could get up and talk. Christina Naylor, Rachel Glickman, Heather Golding, Bess Richardson, Richard Epstein. Yeah, you can get up and close personal to any one of these people and learn more about us. The other big item is we're going into our 99th year, preparing for our centennial. So look forward to things that are happening. There's a concert going on March 12th here coming up. Other than that, that's about it at the Dummerston Center Church. Oh, Bess has got a flyer. Yeah, see Bess.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark or debate on this motion? You ready for the question? It has been moved and seconded to grant tax-exempt status to Green Mtn Camp for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And Green Mtn Camp is exempt. Article 11, to transact any other business that may legally come before said town meeting. We'll let Zeke go first, and then we've got some other important things to present.
So on our list of people to thank, Gene Newell has been an auditor since 1995. I knew the 18 wasn't right. And she's not running Gurudaram Khalsa is just finishing his second year as a select board member and chose not to run again, so this will be his last meeting with us as a select board member. And just a few other items before we get to another person we should thank. There are going to be several openings on the boards, the volunteer boards. And I had the idea that we would lock these doors and not let anyone out until we filled all the slots, but I was told that wasn't, we couldn't do that. No, all right. So we're just going to call on your sense of civic responsibility and perhaps guilt or whatever it takes to get you to step forward. And, you know, the DRB is really the party board in Dummerston. There's almost a waiting list to get on that board. The Planning Commission could use a few more people. Let's see, you know, the Cemetery Committee, there are always people dying to get onto that one, right? One more, what was the other one? Energy Committee, right. They're running out of gas on the Energy Committee. They need to fill up their tank again, so, and they have a good time too. It's not just, you know, guys with pocket protectors and, you know, slide rules. They have a good time also. You don't have to be a graduate of MIT to join the Energy Committee. Anyone else that I have forgotten, you can take it up with me afterwards, but we have, is that for me? No. Pam McFadden has been our town clerk for 11 years, around 11 years, and she chose not to run again. So we'd like to thank her. And
Thank you so much. It's really been so much fun to do this job, and I feel I'm leaving it in some really great hands, and I'm really not stepping out of the building, I'm just stepping aside in the building. So you'll see me around, I promise. Thank you again. It really has been a great privilege to do this, and I really think we're an amazing town, and we should be very proud of ourselves, because we handle ourselves very diplomatically, and we really should be very proud of who we are. So thank you very much.
Now I'm going to call on members of the fire department. I think they have something they want to talk with us about.
Sneak in. I'm Rick Luman, the fire chief. Good afternoon, folks. As you've been seeing in the paper, in the views, and in our fund drive letters, we're trying to build a new center fire station in East Dummerston, in Dummerston Center. We've been planning this for a while now, thinking of ways to limit the cost of the fire department, but we've all come up with a need. We do need 2 fire stations. The way our town is geographically constructed, we're separated by mountains and rivers, an old covered bridge for fire trucks to cross, where our manpower is located through the town. So in a volunteer world, every second counts. So we believe that having 2 fire stations in this town would be a big thing for this town, and if we lost a fire station, it'd be a big loss to this town. History of the department, it was started in 1950. The station was started in West Dummerston Village.
At this point, the station is at the point where we can't really renovate. We have structural failure in the back wall, the chimney's coming down. We have water seepage, so we have runoff, we have ledge, all those water issues, they come into and bring moisture into the station. Moisture in the station, not a great thing when you have metal trucks, they tend to rust a little bit. And also our gear can't dry properly, which means that it grows mold and stuff like that. Gear's supposed to have a 10-year life under the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA. Our gear's 6 years old and it's already showing signs of needing to be replaced. And that's due to the moisture. We have electrical issues. We don't even have 100 amp service in that station. Anyone who's been to our pancake breakfast in October, show of hands, how many of you have been there? A lot of the room. You like the food? It's good food? Great. We have coffee pots. We have warmers for the sausage and the gravy. We can't plug them in all at once without blowing something. That's not good. It's energy inefficient. I know we all like energy efficiency. It's good. It saves us money. Insulation's not there. The lighting is not there. The doors, we're losing so much heat through those doors. Speaking of the doors, as the chief said, our engine 2 we purchased about 6-7 years ago. That's a cookie cutter truck. By that I mean it's a fairly stock truck, very little customization. We don't custom build them for a size factor. That can't fit in the center station. To custom build a truck to fit in there adds an exorbitant amount of cost, as well as you reduce some of the leaf springs in the suspension in the back, which adds wear and tear to the truck and reduces its longevity. These trucks have to last us almost 30 years. So to do that, it's not good fiscal sense. And if you've been there, you know it's not really handicap accessible. If you do have a wheelchair and you have to get up to the second floor, there's an outdoor ramp, but that ramp leads to a hill, which leads to a pond. Not good. So what's our proposal? What are we trying to do? In the brochures, and if you want one, they're on the back table. We have several hundred of them. Please take them, look them over. They have drawings. The easel has drawings of the new station. We're building a one-story station. We're looking to be about the same square footage, but it's a different footprint. Essentially, if you look at the station now, you cut off the top, and you put it right on the back. That's what we're looking to do. The bays will be a little bit larger. The doors will be larger. The meeting room will be behind the bays. So we'll have that one floor, handicap accessible layout. Everything will be brand new structurally. All the walls, the foundation, everything. We'll be doing some blasting to remove ledge. We'll do new foundation drains to remediate some of those moisture issues we talked about. Electrical, we don't want to blow things anymore. 200 amp service, so we'll have plenty of power to go forward. Energy efficient lighting, heating, radiant heat in the floors, new insulation, keep the building more energy efficient. We've had some preliminary talks with the Energy Committee about best ways and best practices to do that with this new station. And once we get the final set of building plans, we'll be sending that to them for their review and their suggestions. As I mentioned, larger bays and handicap accessibility. So what does this break down to? We're looking about $250,000 to $280,000 to tear down and build a brand new station in Dummerston Center. That's not a small amount of money. For the last 20 to 30 years, we've actually been building up a small capital fund. We've offset that with additional fundraising towards the center station project. We've done raffle tickets, we've done some bake sales, we're doing a few other things to help raise money. We've asked for more of that in the fund drive letter. You saw that go out a couple months ago. We've been able to raise 40% of the cost of this station. 40%, that's huge. So when we go to build this, we'll be coming back to the town. We're actually going out to bid in a couple of weeks. It'll be an open, competitive bid process. We'll get the documents back, and towards the end of April, we've talked to Zeke, holding a special town meeting to hopefully appropriate the rest of those funds needed to build that station, about 60% of the construction costs. You can see in the brochure, we have some pictures of the current layout. Underneath the stairs that go up to the second floor, we have 7 sets of gear hanging under the stairs. That's for our members. We have to kind of duck and fit and squeeze under there. We have to squeeze and wiggle like the chief did going up here to get between the trucks. We need a new station. We really do. As the chief said, the layout of the town, the way the bridges are, the hills, the mountains, the way our members are geographically located around town, it's the best, most efficient means to protect you all. We realize it's a significant cost. We're trying to keep costs down as much as we can. We feel $250,000 to $280,000 for a total out-the-door cost, 40% of that being paid by us, is a reasonable figure, and we hope that we'll have your support when we come to ask for that towards the end of April. So with that, I don't know if we want to advocate a lot of time for questions, but we are here. We have flyers. We have posters in the back of the room. Please come ask us whatever you want to know. We're here to answer your questions.
Any questions for Rich? All right, pick up your brochure on the way out. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any other business to come before town meeting? Mark?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I got to tell you, it's the first town meeting in a few years. It really warms the cockles of my heart not to have to get into a heated discussion on the farmland protection money. I'm overwhelmed by that. And to prove my point, it's not that I don't believe in it. I think it's a great idea. I just don't think this is the avenue to raise large funds. Case in point, the fire department has covered over $100,000 of their costs by fundraising. You folks that are pro-farming and have debated this with me over the years, you haven't done fundraising except for Farm Day. Last year that put $250 into the budget. And the only other donation that fund got was a private donation of $50 according to town records. So like I said last year, if you're going to talk the talk, please walk the walk. If you think it's that important, go home and write a check, please. But don't put it on the back of the taxpayers. I brought so many numbers last year to show you how broke the people in Dummerston are. And I feel as though it fell on deaf ears and you don't care about them. And that's sad. So it was great that we didn't have to discuss that. It's doing what it's supposed to do until there's more action. And it'd be nice to know what's going on in the farmland protection. There's no report in our town report this year, so I don't know what they did last year. So I would like to say that. Also, this is my last year in Dummerston. This is my last town meeting. I'm moving out. It's been great. I've enjoyed the experience I've had, a lot of friends. I have to let the select board know that I cannot be a fence viewer anymore. I have to resign my position. And that was a big straw on whether I wanted to leave or not, but I'm going to surrender my position as fence viewer. So if somebody's here wants to be a fence viewer, don't hesitate to jump in. It's a great position. Thank you.
Thank you for your years of service, Mark. Bill, we need a mic up here, please.
Thank you. Bill Schmidt. In response to Mark, in part, there is another farmland protection project in the works. And if it all goes well, the Vermont Land Trust, which is working with the farmer on it, hopes to look for funding, state and other funding, this fall. An appraisal is now being done. I have to say that the $18,000 that the town contributed out of this fund 2 years ago to the Bunker Farm project was instrumental in securing several $100,000, mostly state and federal. That $18,000 indicated local support. It was very important for the project. So some of the money in the fund now, the $30,000 that Zeke noted, and which is in the town report, some of that money hopefully will be used to secure additional state and federal monies and maybe some foundation monies toward this new project that's happening. I wish I could tell you what that project is, but I don't feel that I'm at liberty to do so at this point. So look ahead to the fall and we'll see what is being announced.
Anything else up here?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Royce with the Dummerston Conservation Commission,
And I just wanted to briefly discuss or tell you all about a new insect that we should be aware of. It's the emerald ash borer. It threatens our ash trees. The Dummerston Conservation Commission is trying to monitor basically our large historic ash trees in town, and we don't know where they all are, so we could really use your help in contacting us so we can get a map of where these historic trees are. So if we could get your help, that'd be great. Thank you.
Graham, right up front, please. Thanks.
As I said before, my name is Opeyemi. I feel like I'm representing as a new demographic here as I look around the room. But what I really wanted to say was I got a phone call this morning with the 603 area code, and because I sound very white, I got to hear some very interesting things about what's being said about our election this year. And I wanted to say that the Black Lives Matter sign, for all the people who get so, all lives matter, all lives matter. It just means what a 5-year-old brown friend of mine said. It means don't hurt brown people, okay? That's all it means. And therefore, if you get to have a conversation today with anybody who's fearful of where the country is going and fearful of people who look like me, I've only had 2 racist incidents in 14 months living here. That is wonderful. So thank you, and I feel like I'm in a Norman Rockwell painting.
Over there.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm Joe Little, I'm new to town. I just wanted to thank the town office and those who put this package together, because somebody who's new in town, this was just a great read. I love reports. And it was really informative, and I want to say thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else? Sam? Over.
Thanks. Sorry to make you get a crink in your neck looking back here. I'm Dave Patriquin. I'm one of the trustees of the town library, Lydia Pratt Library, here to make my annual report. Just to tell you that, firstly, we have a lot of thanks. We certainly have thanks to the town office. Pam and Laurie have been our support up there, and Laurie has taken on some new functions in the last year in terms of helping us with our financial management, which has been a great help. And we really appreciated that. Thank you, ladies. Also want to thank the Community Center Board. They really help us. Of course, we live in their building, and so that makes a difference. And finally, thanks to a whole bunch of volunteers who make the library possible. Without them, you would have no library. Finally, for announcements, I have to tell you we have bad news. Janet Avery was one of our trustees, and we've lost her. You have handouts in your seats that tell you about some of the programs that go on. This year we have new web connections. The Vermont Department of Libraries has some connections, and if you want to drive by our table out here, we can tell you about them because they're educational programs that are accessible, and this really helps. Also, this year we've gone crazy with electronics. I think our whole collection now is in the computer, which is either good or bad. We're not quite certain yet. I guess you know that we can get most any book you want through the interlibrary loan system, so that we don't have to have a huge library because we've got a huge telephone. Finally, as I said, we live on volunteer power. Our trustees are volunteers. Our Saturday attendants in the library are volunteers. Our friends, Lydia's friends, are volunteers. Without them, as I said, we would not exist. Finally, we have outside here a sales point for bags, grocery or shopping or book bags. They're really good book bags, and they're really priced well, and they really help us to finance the library. So there you go. Thank you all for your support. We hope to see you over there in the library.
Go ahead, Sam.
Hello, Sam Farwell. I'm speaking as current chair of the Planning Commission, and I guess if there's one thing you're going to take home from this meeting is that you should volunteer for some board, and I'm going to pitch for the Planning Commission. Maybe we should have an auction of some sort. I don't know, some sort of bidding war. But the Planning Commission is a great group. We were losing, as we thanked Cindy Wilcox for 17 years, and Captain Rich Cogliano, who was just speaking for the fire department. That's taking up a lot of his time. He's stepping off the Planning Commission after 5 years? Good chunk of time. Thank you, Rich. So we have 2 vacancies, and now's a great time because we're heading into the town plan update, which we do every 5 years or sooner to keep it relevant. I'll be at the new select board meeting tomorrow night to talk to them about what our proposed schedule is and how we hope to go about it. But mainly, we hope to involve the town as much as possible. And my pitch right now is that to look for our public forums, which will hopefully be this summer, those are the meetings you should come to. Don't wait for the public hearing at the end of the process. The process is going to be at least 18 months long, and by the end of it, we'll hopefully have a draft that we're not going to really be interested in revising anymore. So you can come to the public hearing if you've been to the public forums and we didn't listen to you. But if you don't show up to the public forums and come to the public hearing and gripe about what you don't like, you might just get written off as a crank. That's my warning right now. This is the beginning of the process. Get in at the front end. It's a great process and it's a great document because it's our vision for the future. And a lot of things depend on it. Our zoning bylaw depends on our town plan, and it needs to be in compliance with our town plan. So if it's not in our town plan, it may not get into zoning. If it's something you don't want in zoning, then it should be talked about in the town plan. The other things that depend on the town plan are the Act 250 hearings and the Public Service Board's hearings on things like solar installations and power lines and any electric generation facilities. So those are out of our local control, yet our town plan can have some influence on how those get decided. So with that in mind, please keep your eyes and ears open for those public forums. Thanks.
Marianne?
Hi, I'd just like to say a little bit about the Conservation Commission. I'm the chair of the Dummerston Conservation Commission. We have a really active commission.
Marianne, would you mind saying your name?
Mary Ellen Copeland.
Thank you.
I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission. I wanted to let you all know that this year we were able to do a lot of work on clearing the invasives on the top of Prospect. Prospect Hill had really grown up to a lot of invasives, and we've done a lot of work up there, and so I'm really strongly suggesting that you all get up there and take a look. The view is gorgeous, and we'll be thinking about what more work we need to do up there. In addition, as we get more and more into spring, you're all going to be seeing the invasives come up in your own yards and around your own homes and along the streets of Dummerston. And we are trying really, really hard to stay on top of that situation. And we'd like each of you that wherever you live to take responsibility for the invasives that you have on your property. And to help you with that, we had a program last fall with Chris Politan, who's an expert in removal of invasives. And he's coming back this spring, the end of April. And so we'd like very much to have you come and find out about how you can get rid of your invasives safely. And the last thing I want to say is that we've been trying to educate people in Dummerston about what we have here in terms of natural resources, so that going into the future, working on the town plan, everything that we do, we can be taking good care of what we have. And as part of that educational outreach, we have lots of educational programs. And right now, on Monday mornings from 10 to 12, we've already had 2, but there's 2 more coming up. We have programs on natural resources with well-known environmentalist Bob Engel at the Learning Collaborative and on Route 5. So we really encourage you all to come out to that and find out more about the community. It's going to feed into the town plan and all the other work that we do. Thanks.
The Animal Control Department of Dummerston, Wayne Emery back there, we have some barn cats that have been spayed or neutered, up to date, looking for a new home for these barn cats, if you know anyone. And other than that, we're finishing up early, so I brought some slides of my trip to Wardsboro, if anyone wants.
Is there anyone else who has town business to bring before us? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, Larry, you had something to add? I think we can give Larry permission to speak, unless there's an objection. Okay.
So I just wanted to get through this, I think. But on behalf of myself, my sister, my mother, I wanted to thank the town and the listers especially for the fantastic tribute to Dad on the front cover. The dedication inside was very fitting and very nice. He would have been embarrassed to think that he was popular enough to be on the front cover of the town report, but he sure loved this town, and we certainly miss him, especially today. He should be here running back and forth to the kitchen, and but we're certainly all thinking of him, and again, we definitely appreciate the honor, and it was a very nice gesture on Gene. I think it was Gene Newell's spearhead, among others, but from the bottom of our hearts and all of our family, thank you very much for the honor and the tribute.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor of adjourning till next year? Aye. Ayes have it. Have a good afternoon.